I'll tell you what Dan Hurley is using to motivate the Huskies heading into the Big East tournament. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. So, history made. 28 wins, regular season record. 18 wins in the Big East. Also a record. But what's Dan Hurley doing to wipe the slate clean? You know, essentially using one of those devices you've seen in the movie Men in Black to kind of just wipe the memory and create a new slate for this team now that the regular season is done. I would imagine he's doing that for his team right now, but maybe not entirely. Because you still want to keep that edge. And what edge am I speaking about? There's a different mentality. I've covered mid-major college basketball. You could be 28-3 in a mid-major right now. And everybody knows that if you don't win your conference tournament, there's a high likelihood that you will not be playing in the NCAA tournament. You'll be playing in the NIT or the CBI. But the big dance, that's the reality for one bid leagues. But it's a different pressure and a different motivation for the UConns of the world. UConn is the standard right now. Defending national champion, 28 wins, most in program history. Think about that. It's hard to make new records at UConn. Dan Hurley said that himself. So that was something that they set out to do. Maybe not at the beginning of the season, but likely a stretch goal, something that they think they can accomplish. And then as it became a reality, let's go for it. 18 wins in the Big East. Again, something that was probably thought of as unattainable. I think most pundits, even big-time fans, were looking at UConn as a 17-win Big East, and that was generous, considering what happened to a team that won the national championship last year, coming in fourth. So it's Hurley's job, and he's doing a great job of it, to understand what makes his team tick. Everyone knows coach speak when you hear it. Dan Hurley's not great at it because he doesn't need to be, but he also, he can give you coach speak. I think at the beginning of the year, a lot of it revolved around Tristan Newton and him not getting the recognition that he deserves. I think when you hear coaches talk about they don't care about personal awards, that there's some truth to that, but there's also a monicum of hurt that is behind that. It's like when someone tells a joke about you personally, and you may laugh it off. You may think it's actually really funny. But if some of it is true, there's a part of you that's probably heard about it. I've been there before. You think about it and you're like, man, that one stung a little bit. So, yeah, we can sit here and say, we don't care about personal awards because the only thing that matters at UConn is to win a championship, right? Well, we've done that in the regular season. We've done that 5 times as an NCAA tournament champion. But the truth is, when you add someone like an Alex Karaban, who was left off of the Big East Awards, and you have to think that your player likely got robbed of something that they earned. And I haven't spoken to Luke Murray or Kamani Young or Tom Moore or anybody on the UConn staff. But in my experience of talking to assistant coaches, asking them how the team feels about who was left off the personal awards, because these kids all know. They all have Twitter accounts, X accounts, sorry. They all have Instagram. All these accolades get pushed out to the social media sphere. So that automatically creates a little bit of a buzz. So I don't know if Dan Hurley addresses it, but he may and use it as motivation. I think he kind of does in his own way. And I also think that there's some truth to it, where someone like Alex Karaban, who's very impactful, should have been on the All Big East team, at least been an honorable mention. I find that incredible to have him be, whether you want to call him a small forward, power forward, to have him not on the Big East honorable mention is a travesty. So all of this is to be said that Dan Hurley is always going to use this to play into creating that culture advantage. Truly elite coaches get the most out of their teams when there's a chip. And hard to find a chip when you're the number one team in the country, or two, or number one seed, or record this, record that. But it'll start with, where were they predicted? Third. These coaches didn't respect you. They talk nice pregame, but the reality is they didn't think you could do this. 18 wins later, and another record, check. Back to Alex. People are saying, fans, media, they're saying you shoot poorly in big games, especially on the road. That you only shoot well against the low of the low, Georgetown and DePaul. Well, checks notes. 9 of 15 the past two games on the road against top 10 Marquette and Providence, who was playing in their Super Bowl. I'd say that's pretty good. I'd say he can do what he has to do against big time teams. Pundits are saying the team overall, Providence is going to beat you, and probably going to do it handily. It's a home game. Remember the Creighton game? Remember all that? Joe Lenardi was one of them. Had a whole segment on how Providence was going to beat UConn. Nobody believes Dan Hurley can beat Providence in Providence. He's probably saying, I haven't done it. They think you have nothing to play for. That if you get down, you'll give up. It's their senior night. They're going to come out firing. People are going to be yelling and screaming. It's 50-cent beer night. They're going to be drunk and yelling obscenities at you and how you're terrible. And they got down 15-2. But this team is different. And they ended that first half on a 40-9 run. And ended Providence's NCAA tournament hopes right there, as we predicted last Friday. At least they'll be in a conversation for hosting an NIT game. So there's some love there for PC. So what's next, Coach? This team hasn't won the Big East tournament. They haven't cut down nets at MSG. They can't possibly do what Ray Allen and his guys did, right? What Kemba and his teams did. Again, you have the one seed all sewn up. Marquette has Tyler Kolek coming back. They'll want revenge for ruining their senior night. Creighton has your number if we play Creighton in the final. They prove that you can be beaten, that you're human. But I trust in Dan Hurley that he's going to wipe the slate clean, get these guys in the right mindset, and ready to roll for their next game, which will be Thursday at noon against either Xavier or Butler, which normally I would think would be a difficult game. I think they all are at this point. Anything can happen. But I look for UConn to really kind of start sending that message that this is a brand new season. And I know Dan Hurley is thinking the exact same thing. Coming up on the show, we'll talk about the Big East accolades, where there were snubs. We kind of talked about one already. And how that's impactful for the Big East tournament. You're Locked On UConn. So if you're a streaming guy like I am, I remember my first usage of any type of streaming apparatus was pre-smart TV. It was with a Fire Stick. And it was, you had your apps on there, you plugged it into any other TV that you could find that had a compatible USB, and you had a million shows, most bunch of movies and sports at your disposal. And that's how an old guy like me got into the streaming game. But Fire TV recently created Fire TV channel apps for now that everyone has smart TVs. So it allows you to have a constant supply of the latest videos for your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us on Locked On and most of the big pro leagues, college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into the in-game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date in the latest world of sports. March Madness, which is right around the corner, and the NBA. Let's go back into our title sponsor, Game Time. Have you ever just gone to an event and scalped tickets? I have. It's the easiest way to probably get what you need, but also have anxiety that you're going to miss out on a low price, maybe not exactly where you'll sit. Maybe put you with fans that you're going to regret sitting next to, like those PC fans that went after Dan Hurley. Well, that can change. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, theater events near you. With a killer last-minute deal, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. From personal experience, it's got an incredibly easy interface. There's that low price guarantee. If you don't believe me, check it out. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy. That is an incredible feature, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in price shows your total up front, so there's no hidden fees. And you can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Go start that and more at gametime.co. Okay. Accolades for our boys. Big East tournament honors, regular season honors. Sorry, not tournament, regular season honors. Let's talk about that. So, couple of things. I saw that Kalkbrenner won Defensive Player of the Year. I want to talk about why I think that's almost such a misleading situation, right? He won, I think, for the 3rd time. Maybe I'm just out of the loop when it comes to these awards, but when I think Big East Defensive Player of the Year, he doesn't come to mind. I know what his stats are. So if you're a Creighton fan and you're watching this, I don't know why you would, but if you are, I understand why. And you can scream at me and tell me that I'm wrong. And I get he's impactful. He had a big impact when Donovan Clingan wasn't in the game when we played against them on the road. But he doesn't do enough for me that deters people from coming after him. Maybe that's why. Maybe his own persona kind of makes people want to. Maybe he's a skinny guy and unassuming. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's just a perception job on my fault, and that's just me. But these all Big East teams, I think they got it right. Other than if your Big East Defensive Player of the Year isn't also on your All Conference first team, I don't know. That's an interesting one. Happy that Tristan was there unanimously. Devin Carter unanimous. I agree with. Baylor Shireman, I also agree with. I don't agree that Tyler Kolek is an all unanimous all conference player, but that's just me. I think that could have went to Kadari Richmond, who's also on the Big East team, and then of course our guy Cam, who inexplicably did not win the sportsmanship award. I wonder why. That's okay, Cam. You keep being you. I think these awards. I just went through a whole segment about how they don't matter, but they do, and I think part of that is because we like for our team to win things. And I think it's one of those moments where you kind of so well balanced. It's kind of like when a football team has an incredible quarterback and a receiver or running back they're both Heisman hopefuls. And in those moments, you end up having kind of voters split on who they give the votes to. So I think that's the case here, where we don't have more people represented. So the thing about these Big East honors that I think is a little frustrating is, both Tristan, as we mentioned, both Tristan and Cam garnered spots on the all-conference first team. Donovan Clingan was an all-league honorable mention, which is kind of silly, but I understand why he was, because he missed 5 games in the crux of the season. Doesn't change how impactful he is. And then rounding all of that out was Steph Castle being on the all-freshman team unanimous. He also should have been an honorable mention for the all-conference team, regardless. But can we talk about the disrespect of Alex Karaban? We touched on it in the first segment. Let's just talk about his stats. Because we all know that he's not all about stats, and he does all the things you need for a team to continue to have success. All the little things. But let's talk about this. 14.2 points, 5.3 rebounds. But this is where it gets interesting. He's shooting 50% from the floor, 50.3, 40.1% from 3, and 90.2% from the free throw line. So he joined Cam Spencer as a second 50, 40, 90 guy, which is elite of elite when it comes to efficiency. But he's not all conference? Not even an honorable mention? That is so mind-bogglingly silly to me that I would weave that into the conversation that we discussed in the first segment about disrespect for a title team. What bothers me is we're not really searching, as we talked about, for things to give us an edge. They're kind of given to us. And I think this is another one of those moments where Alex Karaban, who we all know and love as our Mr. Do-It-All, doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. Now, to go the opposite way, congratulate Hassan Diarra for winning Sixth Man of the Year. They haven't announced Big East Player of the Year. I think that's Wednesday. But I'm so excited for Haas. He really shows what I said about him last week, which is he's a calming influence, hits buckets when he is the epitome of he takes what the defense gives him, doesn't force. He gets everyone settled down, gets everyone in the right spot. He's the perfect backup quarterback who could easily start and likely starts on 75% of Division I teams. He is the epitome of what this team is about. And the crazy thing is we say that about like 5 or 6 of these guys. But that's what makes them great. And that's what makes them a true title contender. But I just love that Haas came in similar to Tristan, a little bigger school profile, obviously went to Texas A&M and has done everything that this staff has asked of him. Could have easily been frustrated with a backup role, but he's been a great steward for what UConn is about, their culture, and what Dan Hurley is about. And so I'm happy for him. I'm proud of him. Again, I don't see how Dan Hurley doesn't win Coach of the Year in the Big East. I think that's kind of a foregone conclusion, but crazier things have happened. Just a quick program note. We're going to be having some guests on the rest of this week, maybe with the exception of Friday. On Tuesday, we're going to be having Little Red on to talk about his fandom, traveling. I think he's been to 23 games this year, just UConn hoops as a whole, and we'll go into kind of some of his best experiences, worst experiences, and give that kind of ultimate UConn fan experience. On Wednesday, we'll be having Sam Calhoun, grandson of the GOAT, Jim Calhoun, to talk about some UConn hoops, but also give a unique perspective of what it's like to have such a kind of, I would say, famous in this world, in this basketball world's grandfather, what that was like growing up, what's it like now, and what he's up to, budding journalist himself. ask him some tough questions. I know he's excited about it, but I gave him the rundown, and I think we're looking forward to that on Wednesday, or on Wednesday, and then we're going to tape and have the Big East Barroom guys come in. So whether we do Sam on Wednesday for Thursday or Big East Ballroom Tuesday for Wednesday, we're definitely going to have the Big East Ballroom guys come in and give us a good Big East preview and talk through UConn's chances and who they think could possibly trip them up in the Big East tournament and maybe beyond. But also just really looking forward to having those guys in. They do a great job getting the pulse of the conference and talking through everything UConn and other teams in the Big East. So really looking forward to the rest of the week and getting to the Big East tournament. We're going to talk about a couple more things, but just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Locked On has debuted the 24/7 national sports streaming channel on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV, offering around-the-clock coverage of top sports through Locked On Sports Today, accessible on the Fire TV channels app, and wherever you utilize YouTube. Could be on your phone, could be on your tablet, but as long as you download that Fire TV channel app, you will have access to all of the Locked On content. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about more about UConn, Dan Hurley's behavior to fans, and what lies ahead in the Big East tournament right after this. When you're hiring for small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn just is another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals that you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that, and while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring isn't easy when you have that many quality candidates. Trust me, I know. So LinkedIn makes it so that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within the 24 hours. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may apply. All right. What lies ahead in the Big East tournament? And I'll give you my opinion on Dan Hurley and his comments towards the fans. But let's talk about the bracket. What I think is going to transpire and maybe some predictions for the week. I'm going to do my entire bracket right now and how it'll affect UConn. I think if I look at the first round games, the Xavier versus Butler, I think Butler wins that game. I like Thad Matta versus Sean Miller. I think Thad Matta is a little more locked in with his team. I know Xavier's had some injuries. I wonder if Sean Miller has his thoughts on Ohio State. We know Thad Matta will not be in the running for an Ohio State job as he was once there. So I don't know. Sometimes those situations can kind of affect your team going forward. So I'm going Butler in that game. And then in the Ed Cooley Bowl, I think Providence beats Georgetown. I never want to root for Ed Cooley, but I think it would be hysterical if Georgetown actually beat Providence. Not because I don't like Kim English, but just mostly because I don't like Providence fans. They're a very interesting lot. And then you have the 9:00 game, DePaul against Villanova. Obviously, Villanova wins that game. I was disappointed. I'm not a huge Villanova fan or supporter, but I really thought they were going to, beat out Creighton and come make that incredible comeback. And so unfortunate for them, probably burst their bubble, but they win that game. They get another opportunity against Marquette, and you never know what can happen. So now we're into the quarterfinals game. We obviously know UConn is going to be whoever comes out of that. So that'll be Butler, St. John's, Seton Hall. Out of respect for my Jersey folks, I think Seton Hall wins that game. I don't really think the crowd will matter. I know they'll get some Jersey folks to kind of come in there. I just like Dre Davis. I like Kadari Richmond. I don't think they'll do what UConn did and isolate and allow one player to beat them. I think you're going to see a lot of undisciplined defense for St. John's, and I think Seton Hall wins that game. And then You have Providence, Creighton. I think Creighton wins that game pretty easily. I think, again, Providence has some good things about them. I like, obviously, Devin Carter is an NBA player. When you're so one player dependent, it's so hard to deal with a team like Creighton that has 4 and 5 answers. But I would say that if they can just let Ryan Kalkbrenner be the only one who beats you, or even Alexander, because I don't look at him as, an elite 3-point shooter. When he's open, he makes shots, but don't help. I think the thing about Creighton is you don't help, and then they have a hard time because you just really play isolation ball, and that plays against their entire philosophy. So maybe you're allowing either Bailey Shireman or Alexander to kind of go wild, and then you're shutting everyone else down. I think that's just something they're going to have to figure out. Providence is, but I think Creighton wins that game. I don't think they do it. And then I think also then I'm going to have to go with Marquette. I think it's going to be chalk to the semifinals. I think I have UConn beating Seton Hall, and then I have Creighton winning. I don't have Marquette winning. I think we're going to get a UConn Creighton final, which is going to be epic. And I think I have UConn winning again because I feel like they've figured out how to play this team and not chase them around to, have what happened with the Villanova game where they start out against like 30-8 or something crazy like that. They didn't miss. So those are my Big East predictions. I think UConn wins another Big East tournament. They cut down the nets and they head to the NCAA tournament there. I wanted to take 1 minute before we close out the show and talk about Dan Hurley and really what has transpired in terms of his relationship with fans that are less than nice to him and definitely not fans that are good to our players. I think it's an interesting problem. I think Dan Hurley has these great qualities, and I think, but deep down, there are some really big demons of him always having to prove himself. And I think he'll even tell you that if someone comes into the floor, then all bets are off. But I think sometimes he seeks out the fan that talks smack to him beginning of the game because he's and listen, there's nothing wrong with what he said in the press conference. If a team is as average as Providence is, and they've been barking at you all game, and then you beat them by 20, and they're still telling you that you suck, it's pretty lame. And I think some of the things he does, I love him going shh to teams because they've been talking smack all game. But I also would love for him to just get the best revenge possible, which is just to continue to win. To continue to set that standard. But there's also a part of me that loves Dan Hurley challenging fans, like come at me and you'll get hurt. And I people call him a fake tough guy. I believe him every single time. I would not want to be in his path when he loses control. But my only fear is that he continues to do that. You're going to get some Will Smith wannabe that's going to try to go up and smack him. And then what happens? I don't know. Does your team get involved? Like, I hope not. I don't want something to happen where a fan's actions ruins UConn's season because Dan Hurley had to respond. But I'm not a moralist. I have no issue with him doing what he's doing. I think people get on their high horse with stuff like that. There's no doing it the right way anymore. There's winning games. There's no program that says, well, we don't pay players or we don't do this. Everyone pays players now. Everyone has the same type of methodology. We just do it better. And I think that's the frustration. They hate us because they ain't us mentality. And that's okay. We're UConn. We win championships. What can I tell you? On that note, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is free for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day. and local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. Before we go, remember to stay tuned for some program notes in terms of who we have coming up this week. Some really good guests. Obviously, stay connected with me on X at Mark Zanetto. Let's put that up so everyone sees it. I think we got rid of it for whatever reason. There it is. So it's at Mark Zanetto, CBB on X. And then also, if you want to email the show, lockedonucon@gmail.com. Go to our YouTube channel, Locked On UConn, like, subscribe, hit the notification button so you get all the notifications of when we're going to be on. That's it for today. I really look forward to the week and going into the Big East tournament. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. As always, peace, love, and go Huskies.